in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view. But when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us again this evening for the newest edition of the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio program. This is your host, Dave Schrader, along with co-host and producer Tim Dennis. We would like to make a couple of announcements first. For those of you that are not a member of our board yet, you may not have heard the good news. Our show is going to a 2-hour format beginning March 5th. So the first weekend in March, we're going to be going to a 2-hour format. We know this for certain. We're going to have Keith, the demonologist from TAPS, on the first part of the show. And right now I'm working on seeing if Keith wants to stretch into the second hour. Or if he doesn't, we do have another TAPS member that's chomping at the bit to join us that night. So we'll keep that under our hat and let you know about it as we get a little bit closer. So we'd like to thank everybody out there that's shown us a lot of support and helped crash the servers the last few weeks by tuning in and listening on the internet. We appreciate that. For those of you listening that aren't familiar with our website, well, I suppose you're familiar if you're listening on the website, but we also have a discussion section where you can go join our paranormal forum, where you can talk to us about the paranormal shows that we do. You can talk to us about events that happen in your life and look for help there. There are plenty of ghost hunters and knowledgeable people that can answer your questions. We're going to get back into tonight's show now. We've got a very great little show lined up for you. Tonight we welcome internationally renowned Nobel Peace Prize nominee, Dr. David Moorehouse. It's going to be a very intriguing look inside precognition or remote viewing. He's trained thousands of civilian, law enforcement, and medical remote viewers, and he's a former Army Ranger officer and CIA operative. Dr. Moorehouse is here to share with us an inside look at how remote viewing is being used to supplement conventional intelligence gathering, and he'll explain why people from all walks of life want to learn this life-altering skill. Good evening, Dr. Moorehouse.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
Hey, I'm really good. How about you?
Doing great. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Now, this evening, Dr. Moorehouse was nice enough to donate a few autographed copies of his book, Psychic Warrior. So as we go along and we read some of the questions that have been sent in by you, the listeners, we will make sure that you can get a copy of the autographed book. We'll select 2 of you by the end of the show. Dr. Moorehouse, wanted to start off with a couple of snowball questions for you here. Maybe you can give us a little bit of a history of what remote viewing is, when it really started to become developed by the government, and go from there.
Yeah, it's a learned ability to apply to kinesthetic activities of detecting and decoding. So you're detecting information and from the unconscious mind and decoding it into coherent three-dimensional thought form, and you are further objectifying that coherent three-dimensional thought form into two-dimensional media, meaning you are sketching and you are writing your perceptions, whether they be simple sketches, contour sketches, dimensional or textural sketches, or whether you are writing down verbal sensory data in the form of color, texture, temperature, taste, sound, smell, energetic, dimensional, emotionals, those kinds of things. Now, where did that come from? In 1972, thereabouts, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency found out through various human intelligence sources that the Czechs, the Chinese, the Germans, the Israelis, the Soviets, even the British were all heavily involved in the study of various aspects of the paranormal. And so the directive went out by the CIA through the Technology and Science Division under the heading of a guy by the name of Robert Gottlieb. Gottlieb secured a $50 million endowment that went to Stanford Research Institute International in Palo Alto, California. And there, 2 laser patent holders, Russell Targ and Harold Putoff, were given responsibility to head up this program and to organize a group of other physicists who came in with them to test the viability, the credibility, the replicatability of this phenomenon and to basically perfect a process, a protocol, a discipline, a dogma, if you will, that allowed otherwise normal human beings to engage in a very extraordinary process to gather information from the unconscious mind. That was tested and evaluated over a period of about 6 to 8 years. In 1978, the results were published, and it was given into the military intelligence community. It wandered around and had difficulty in finding finding a home and staying in a place, but eventually it did, and it stayed in the Defense Intelligence Agency Directorate of Technology and Science, where it has been housed since that time in the early 80s. So 20 some odd years now that intelligence collection methodology has been in existence.
Now, you got involved with this. Now, your story is kind of interesting. You were you on a training exercise or actually in combat when you got the bullet in your helmet?
Well, it was classified a training exercise. I mean, we were training Jordanian Rangers in combat operations against their real or perceived enemies. And so we were, and you can only use your imagination to figure out what that might be. Who do the Jordanians not like back in that day, in '87? And while we were training Jordanian Rangers, my company was selected by the Department of the Army to go there. As a Ranger Company commander, I had 240 men in my charge. We were training a Jordanian battalion. And on one of the operations, I was wounded in the head by a stray Jordanian machine gun bullet. And it didn't enter my head or even break the skin, but it crushed my helmet down, knocked me out. Bullet travels roughly 2,832 feet per second, so it carries quite a wallop, and it knocked me unconscious. And during the time that I was unconscious, I had something that I had never experienced before. That was kind of a waking dream state where I had a vision, and I actually engaged in dialogue with this vision, and I became very aware of it. I was aware of my surroundings, and then I was aware that I was in a non-physical place, and that I was engaged with something, that I was speaking and feeling and smelling and everything you might associate in senses with this particular event, and that became quite transformational for me. It shifted my life. When I came out of that experience, still there in this desert valley called Bat el Ghul, or the belly of the beast, what could I say to my Rangers?
Right.
As I stood up, look at my men and say, "You won't believe what just happened to me, man."
Now, would you categorize that as a near-death experience? Was it more of an astral projection or an OBE, an out-of-body experience?
Well, I don't think it was any of those. I was not near death. I was knocked unconscious, and so what I think happened is that in all the years that have gone by, is that the liman separating, this gossamer veil separating this physical three-dimensional world and worlds beyond, or dimensions beyond, opened. And it can open for us through physical trauma, through emotional trauma, through, for some people, a spiritual trauma. You can be born with those conduits open, if you will. You can, through a practice of a gift, open those conduits and control the opening of those conduits. But sometimes, you get shot in the head or hit in the head, or an automobile accident, or some emotional trauma of someone close to you dying, or you lose something of great worth to you emotionally, and that trauma can open these conduits as well. And so it's not something unique to me or anyone else. It's there for all of us.
But as a legal disclaimer, you don't suggest that anybody goes out and gets shot in the head by a Jordanian bullet, right?
No, do not put a Kevlar on your head and get your friend to shoot you in the head with some small caliber weapon.
Leave that to the professional kids. No shooting each other to try to get superpowers. It just doesn't work that way. Now, had you had any kind of precognitive abilities prior to this?
Not a shred.
Okay.
Not a shred. That's why I say when I had this, I called this vision, I called this being that stood in front of me in this vision, I called it an angel, because I had no metaphysical lexicon. I had a limited theological lexicon, so I understood the notion of an angel, which is what I called it. I called it an angel because it was benevolent and it was non-physical, and so I called it an angel. But I guess if I had another kind of a lexicon, I could have called it a ghost or a spirit or a phantom or an apparition or an entity or an energy or a guide or the list goes on of different things that I could have called it. But all I was comfortable with in my worldview at that particular moment was of an angel.
Now, once this occurred to you and you started to have these abilities manifest themselves to you, I know that you're pretty reluctant to share them with other people. Tell us how you got involved in this program then with the government.
Yeah, well, I have an undergraduate degree in science, and so my whole focus has always been in science and that protocol and that process. And I was very skeptical of what was happening to me. I didn't fully embrace it in that moment, but I left the Ranger Battalion some months later, and I was recruited into a special access program in Washington, D.C., which is something that happens often to Ranger officers coming out of the battalions. And I was recruited into the special access program, which had a unique requirement in order to be accepted for a hire into this special access program, and that was that you had to go through an extensive battery of psychological evaluation and testing, both oral and written. And every quarter you sat down as kind of a structured process with a command psychologist who was a lieutenant colonel who was detailed to keep his finger on the psychiatric pulse of this particular organization, which was a fairly small, hand-picked organization. So you would sit down with this individual and he would talk to you and he would ask you questions about how you were liking your job, how your family was adapting, how you and your family were getting along, and those typical kinds of psychiatric evaluation questions. And in my second assessment with this individual, I shared with him the events that had taken place in the desert in Jordan, because these events continued to occur. They kept coming back, and they seemed to be longer in duration, and they seemed to be more lucid, and they didn't come at times where I was sleeping. They came at times when I was awake, and that I shifted from one reality to another. Now, there are probably some who would say, sure, you got zinged in the head by a machine gun bullet, probably some soft tissue damage, something electrochemical going wrong there. You need some psychotropic medications and you'll be okay. Well, that may have been one approach to it. And we looked at that, and that was not the approach to it. And instead, I was recruited through my recognition and my sharing this with the psychologist. I was recruited into a top-secret clan of psychic spies called remote viewers. And it was a unique position for me to be in. One, I was the first special operations officer ever brought into that unit. And two, I was the only one in the unit who had never made any self-proclaimed ability to see something distant in space-time. I had no preconceived notion of, and I made no pretense of being psychic or of having any psychic ability. In fact, I just cringed at the word when it was offered, that it was a top-secret clan of psychic spies called remote viewers. So I never made any claim to have any ability. I just shared an experience with a psychologist, and that psychologist recruited me into that organization, and the organization accepted me with open arms. And I went through a 12 to 18-month training protocol, which I completed in 6 months, and then became an operational viewer, which I think was not a testimony of my own individual prowess, but was a testimony of my ability to just be a soldier and follow the orders. I didn't question why I was being asked to do certain things in the protocol of remote viewing. I didn't quibble with the protocol or the structure of it. I just did what they told me to do, and that was a simple thing. If you do what they tell you to do, or if you follow the protocol and the structure of coordinate remote viewing, you will get a result, and you will get a result that is usable.
Well, why don't we talk more about that? We're going to go to a quick commercial break here. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show with Dr. David Moorehouse, who's going to be here talking to us about precognition and remote viewing. We are going to open up the phone lines. If you have any questions for Dr. Moorehouse, you can call us at 612-375-1400. Again, that's 612-375-1400. We'll be right back after this.
Adopting aliens and giving them good homes since 1953. Just don't tell our landlord.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
It's Dave and Tim shacking up in the darkness on the edge of town.
I'm Teresa from White Bear Lake, and I needed to refinance my home and do it fast. I contacted a lot of mortgage companies that made promises and commitments that they just couldn't keep. Then I was referred to Keith Troutman. Keith was knowledgeable and worked fast. He listened to what I needed, and within 7 days, we closed on my loan. Other companies promised to save me up to $500 a month. Keith, however, found a program that was right for me and saves me over $1,300 a month. I would recommend Keith Troutman and Tri Minnesota Mortgage to anyone.
Thanks, Teresa. This is Keith Troutman, president and owner of Tri Minnesota Mortgage, and no matter what your situation is, we're here for you. We locate financing programs other brokers cannot. Most lenders use 10 to 20 investors to fund their loans. We have a national investor base of over 70 that ensures you'll get the best loan program available to meet your needs. Call me today at 952-223-5000. I know I can help. Right now, with qualifying loans, we are sending you on a 7-day cruise for two. Certain restrictions apply. Check out our website at cruise@close.com for more details. Or call 952-223-5000. That's 952-223-5000.
This is Dave Schrader from the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. Each week, we delve into the web of the unknown and deal with a lot of scary subjects. But nothing makes my blood run colder or scares me more than dealing with technology. That's why we turn to the experts when we wanted our website for the show set up and maintained. In the studio with me is Don Raleigh, owner of Evolve Systems. Don and his exceptional staff were easy to work with and made setting up our site a breeze. Don, what is it that sets you apart from other web developers?
Well, Dave, we make your business visions come to life by creating, maintaining, and hosting all of your internet needs. We do this by listening to our clients. We offer programs and price plans to fit any budget. And Dave, I mean any budget. Call us at 651-628-4000 and put us to work for you.
Call Don at Evolve Systems, 651-628-4000. I did, and I couldn't be happier with the results.
That's because we take the ugh out of technology, Dave. Call us today at 651-628-4000 or visit us on the web at www.evolve-systems.com, serving the entire United States. That's Evolve Systems, helping you to manage change. Cheers.
If you read Taps Power Mag every month, you'll be able to tell the difference between the absurd.
Could not go to work because Bigfoot stole my car.
And the creepy. Taps Power Mag takes you where few would ever go on purpose. From exclusive interviews with the cast of The Ghost Hunters to the latest trends in technology in the field of the paranormal. To join our journey, order at tapsparamag.com.
Try not to fall asleep. We'll only give you nightmares. Welcome back to the darkness on the edge of town.
Welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. This is Dave Schrader, your host. Our guest this evening is Dr. David Moorehouse. He's going to talk to us more about precognition and remote viewing. Now, Dr. Moorehouse, if I could mention, I did get a chance to see your DVD, which was a collection of the different shows that you've appeared on and your stories have appeared on.
Yeah.
One thing that struck me kind of funny, and maybe you can shed a little light on this in case other people might recognize you from Unsolved Mysteries or Sightings or the other shows that you've appeared on. Now, when they tell the story, when you talk to the psychologist about these visions that you were having, the psychologist immediately goes over to the drawer and gets you this top secret file and lets you start reviewing it. Now, just out of curiosity, I would think as a layman, somebody comes in and starts telling me that they're having visions and seeing things and hearing things. I don't know if my first reaction is, hey, let me let you look at a top secret file now and see what you think of this.
Yeah, I guess the difference would be that this individual was a recruiter for this particular organization. So he was operating out of one organization, and he was recruiting for another organization, which is not unusual in what they would say the black world that's there in these special access programs. You just kind of come deeper and deeper and deeper off the radar scope until the only people that are watching you and looking and managing and hiring and releasing you are people from that particular world. So if this guy has been with this program since its inception, and it appears that he was, when somebody like me comes in and exposes this experience to him, how he evaluates that is based on your psychological profile. He has your psychological profile in front of him because that was part of the requirement to come into this organization. So he really knows what makes you tick. He knows what your envelope is. And so he knows that you're sound and sane and that you're a high performer, and he has all of that information in front of him. Plus he's given you 3 months in the organization, and now he's giving you an evaluation 4 months into the organization. So all of those factors come into play as variables, and it's not just somebody walking in off the street saying, hey, I had this experience in the desert. You see?
Sure, fair enough. I was just curious, as I said, and the way they portrayed on there, it was always just kind of, hey, by the way, Doc, I've been having these visions. Well, here, take a look at this file. Just looked kind of funny to me the way they did that, and I'm sure
you know how they are. They film for 4 days.
Oh,
and
sure.
They whittle it all down to 15 minutes.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. Now, with this, now could you tell us, what was the name of the program that they had started, that they had you review?
Well, I started in an organization that was codenamed Royal Cape, a program that I was recruited into. The documents that I was given, the code name for it was Grill Flame, which is kind of interesting, but it was, at the time I was recruited into it, codenamed Sunstreak. And so that was the organization that I was part of.
Okay. Now, I found it fascinating as you're explaining in this video and in your book, when you're doing this, when you're introduced into this field, you were kind of blown away by the files and what these experiences were telling you. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Well, there were, since 1983, they had been collecting files on what were called remote viewing sessions, or they just call them target sessions or sessions. And you can have different kinds of sessions. You can have training and calibration sessions, or you can have what are called operational sessions. Now, operational sessions are real intelligence sessions that are targeting the real or perceived enemies of our nation, whatever those may be. So it could be double agent targets, it could be counter-drug targets. Back during the Cold War, you could imagine any kind of a target that could be there. I mean, it's something as benign as looking for an intercontinental ballistic missile in a silo in a missile blossom in northern Siberia, to trying to track down the location of a suspected double agent, or to try to determine what happened when the lights went out in a certain section of Moscow, which happened to black out the U.S. Embassy at the same time. You know, what happened at that particular time? What's going on in a particular meeting? What's going on in the mind of a political leader or a military leader or a scientific leader? What's going on in the mind of a pilot flying a new MiG-29? Is the cockpit, the cabin ergonomically designed sufficient for him? Does the aircraft have sufficient power on a climb out? All of these kinds of things became targets and more for remote viewers.
Now, with remote viewing as well, this isn't just something where it is where you can link in and see something that's happening right now, but it's almost a form of time travel as well. Did I understand that correctly?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's for us to really discuss that, we'd have to jump into this quantum perspective of things, and that's probably not what you want to do right now. But just suffice it to say that from the quantum mechanical perspective, there is no past nor future. There is only now. The only thing that matters is now. The only thing that's real is now. Everything else is an illusion expressed in wave form. What happened 5 minutes ago is no longer real. It is a waveform conceptual illusion of itself. We experienced it only in the moment, right? So to be able to see something from a Newtonian, mechanistic, or linear perspective, to go backwards in time 5 months, 5 years, 55 years, 55,000, 55 million years, you can do that because it's all just waveform. Everything is energy, and energy is everything, so therefore everything can be expressed in waveform on some level. So to go from the moment into the matrix field, this of quantum foam of space-time, that's that's nothing unusual for a remote viewer or for anyone else employing any other kind of gift. It is the same thing.
And you were able to actually remote view what happened with the explosion over Lockerbie, Scotland, correct? After it had occurred, you were able to put yourself back onto the plane to see or conceptualize where it had happened.
Well, it was a tasking that came in. After the aircraft blew up, then the viewers were alerted and brought into the unit, and then they were pushed through a process of trying to conclude what happened. And when the viewers came back and said there was an explosion, then of course they would drive the viewers back in. And there's an established protocol. Then once you are considered to be on target and you consider it, everyone's calling it an explosion. That target data in the feedback says, okay, that's good target data. We confer it's probably an explosion as well. Now we want you to know it's an explosion in an aircraft, so what we want you to do is to go back in, access the target, and determine where in the aircraft the explosion took place. And so they have a schematic of the aircraft. It's kind of a simple contour drawing of it. And viewers will then do another session and come back in again, and some people employ a kind of a hand-dowsing technique to go in and say, well, I believe it was here as where the explosion took place. And so then they develop a consensus of opinion from the 8 viewers that comes back in and says, it took place below the passenger deck, in the cargo hold, in front, on the left-hand side of the aircraft, in front of the leading edge of the left wing. And so that's where the majority of the viewers agree that this explosion took place. That information is all sent back then through DIA, back through all of the other intelligence requesters, and it's pushed back in. And then, that confirmation will come back maybe days later, and they'll say, yes, we believe this is where it was. Then they'll come back and say, before you ever get that feedback, they will come back and say, okay, now you felt it was an explosion, you felt this was the location of the explosion, now tell us what the explosive looked like. You see how they start walking it backward?
Sure.
And they just keep going backward and backward. Now, between you and I, it really becomes, and the listeners, it really becomes ridiculous once you start getting to the point where you start asking viewers, all right, now describe the individuals that made this bomb, Describe the location of the individuals that made this particular bomb. Because people are not very good at doing that when you ask them to describe the face of an individual standing in front of them, or an individual who passed by them. Trying to be able to do it from the perspective abilities of perception that are inherent to a remote viewing process really becomes a difficult thing. People start coming up with very generic descriptions. And so the effectiveness of remote viewing sort of pales at that point. And any effort to try to use the remote viewers to pinpoint the location of the suspects in this particular case, that too it kind of becomes ludicrous, because even if they turned around and gave a street address, it would be hours before or days before anyone would ever take action on that information. And that means that they would have certainly moved by that point.
Well, that begs the question as well, then, if you can see these type of things and they can walk you back, perhaps you can even tell us if they've done something like this. What about the Kennedy assassination? What about having the remote viewers go back and tell if there was more than one shooter?
Well, that begs the assumption that the government really cares,
True.
Or that they want you to look at something they already know the answer to. Right?
Wow, very good, Dr. Moorehouse. You pass. You win an autographed copy of your own book. Good job. Well, yeah, I was just curious about that, because I would think that, supposedly they make it sound like such a shadow conspiracy going on where most of the government doesn't know what really happened in those situations. I'd wonder if, you'd be checking up on each other, trying to locate the information on this to see if there were other things going on.
Well, there were a lot of viewers that got together on their own time to do those kinds of things and look at those kinds of targets. But, it's a difficult thing to get yourself wrapped up into. I mean, let's say you solve that mystery for a group of 8 people.
Right.
Let's say that they come up with a solution to that particular problem, and there are many problems that are of a similar nature. What the hell do you do with that? I mean, what were these viewers going to do? Gather together, sign some collective memo, and everybody put their name at the bottom of it and send it back up the tape to DIA and the CIA and beyond that says, we know who killed Kennedy? certainly nothing would have happened with that. And I'm not saying that people that are interested in those kinds of things shouldn't put forth their best effort if that's what they want to do. But, there are a lot of windmills to charge, and there are a lot of things to do in this life.
I think Geraldo and Larry King would be interested in it.
Yeah. I would prefer, it's just me, I would prefer to spend my time trying to figure out what I can do to bring about a difference in the whole of the human condition now. What I can do to make a difference now, and not worry about something that is purely an illusion at this point, right?
Sure.
A conceptual illusion, which would be that. Although, I respect you for asking the question. It's a good question.
Dr. Moorehouse, this is Tim. I have sort of a similar question in that, and I'm going to bring up the subject of 9/11 and Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
You're saying as far as the Kennedy assassination goes, maybe the CIA doesn't want to know, or they already know who did the hit on Kennedy. We'll call it a hit for lack of a better term. And as far as Osama bin Laden goes, are you saying possibly the government doesn't want to go after Osama?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's just a clever answer to a very a unique question.
And I realize that this
and if you're about Osama, I mean I'm sure they're using remote viewers to find Osama. I mean but not to find him. They'll use him for what they could be best applied to. Finding him, they would not be good at. They just wouldn't, because how do you describe the differences between one cave and another, or one valley in the mountain and another, right?
Right.
And if you have a $35 billion satellite network up there that can allegedly read a newspaper laying flat on the ground from a geosynchronous orbital position, right? Then why can't you find one guy walking around with an AK-47? I mean, why?
Now, with remote viewing, though, you're able to allegedly go in and manipulate their mind. Is that what you're saying would be more
what they would be
along
using them for would be probably trying to determine, is he alive? Is he dead? Is he emotionally sound? Is he physically ill? Is he well? Is he strong? Is he still resolute, or is he waning? Of more interest to them might be what about his immediate followers, his protectors? He is in a ring of security that at some point in time, right, if you keep just going through the layers of the onion of those that secure him, is there some weakness in that at some place? Is there someone who is waning, who is interested in money, or is interested in something else, land, title, whatever the case may be? Is there someone in that layer, that protective layer around him, that they can find, that they can work backward? Those are the kinds of things they would be looking at and trying to unravel, rather than using them in this simplistic idea of, stick your finger on a place on the map and match that to your sketches and tell us that's where he is. Viewers were never very good at doing that kind of thing. So there are just too many inconsistencies and variables in the process that cause that not to be effective. So they have to do or employ them at what they would be good at and forget about the other kinds of things. But it's a common question asked, if remote viewers can do what remote viewers claim they can do, then why haven't they found Osama bin Laden? That's a common question. Although I know you weren't asking that question.
Now, when you're doing a remote viewing, now I had kind of alluded to the fact that, and maybe I misunderstood the way it was written or spoken about on the show that I watched, you are able to manipulate electronics or people's thoughts while doing remote viewing? Is that a possibility, or?
There's a form, a hybrid form of the protocol called remote influencing. And this hybrid form of the protocol employs just a concentrated thought directed at another human being for the purpose of causing a moment's hesitation, for the purpose of bringing about irritability or to placate someone in some way. It's no different than NLP, if you really want to know the truth, and it's no different than a group of individuals sitting in an outside office carrying on a conversation which is derogatory and directed towards you. You might say to yourself, well, I feel that. And it's the same kind of a thing. It goes back to the comment I made earlier, which is everything is energy and energy is everything, so therefore everything is expressed in waveform on some level.
So if you're stirring stuff up around them, that has a direct effect on their outcome and what's going on.
On their sense of well-being, their sense of security, their sense of self-worth, their sense of just the assurance that they have to lead or to do what it is that they have to do. If there is a constant annoying drip in the back of your mind that someone is opposed or against you in a very deliberate and direct way, if they can shake the foundation upon which you stand, then they can bring about hesitation. They can bring about a sense of ill-being in another human being. It's not a difficult thing for them to do, and all of us have experienced it at some point in our lives in very kind of passive ways. I mean, with a spouse or significant other or friends and colleagues and coworkers, we felt those kinds of things. Now just think about it in a group of individuals that sat down every day with a concerted effort to try to bring about that sort of disruption in you. And if you look and read, there are all kinds of studies being done about what goes on in the electrostatic field of this planet, and not what 8 people can do, but what the whole collective consciousness of the planet can do.
That almost sounds like the power of prayer. When people on the other end of the world may be praying for somebody that doesn't even know they're being prayed for, and suddenly they begin to heal.
You are exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly. It is precisely what we're talking about.
Now, let me mention to the listeners, if you have an interest in learning more about remote viewing or taking courses, there are courses available, especially with Dr. Moorehouse, through the Learning Annex. And you can go see them at the learningannex.com. That's learningannex.com. And we do have some dates coming up. February 21st, Dr. Moorehouse will be in Los Angeles. February 23rd, San Diego. March 1st in New York, and March 2nd here in Minneapolis. And the programs are available at thelearningannex.com. You can also go directly to Dr. Moorehouse's website at David Moorehouse. That's MOREHOUSE.com. Dr. David Moorehouse's website is there. You can get information, see when his courses are coming up. You can also purchase directly from your website, is that correct, a course on doing it at home. And there's the books and all the other links there as well.
Yeah, the home course is done by Sounds True. So, yeah, you can do it through our website or go to Sounds True.
Okay. Now, Kristen from Minnesota has an emailed-in question, and it kind of lends itself to this right now. How can an average everyday person gain something from your program of remote viewing, and what would they gain?
Depends on what that person is after. What is the question that drives that person? It's not as if you can go through a laundry list of things, although it would be nice, and say, well, you'll be this and you'll be that and you'll be this and you'll be that. It really depends on what it is you're after. What is it that you are called to do in this existence? What is it that you define as the purpose of your life? And then you start collecting tools to help you live that life better. If you had this ability, which all of you do, if you went through this protocol and this process to give yourself an undeniable, irrefutable evidence of this ability, how different might your life be from that? And so what I'll say to you when that kind of a question comes up is, always, it's not about the tool that you use. It's not about this tool of remote viewing. It's just simply that. It's a tool. First, you have to decide for yourself what the purpose of your life is. And first, you have to decide for yourself what's the perpetual question you ask yourself every day. I mean, if you ask yourself this question every day when you get up, do I matter, right? Or am I successful? Those are the kinds of things that really won't make a difference for you with remote viewing, because you have to be able to define those things and have a positive perpetual question. If your question, for example, is how may I serve each day with love and joy in my heart, well, now you've got a question that's a foundation that allows you to employ a tool, whatever that tool may be, to do that better. So you have to ask yourself, what are you after in this? What do you want? Why do you want it? And what are you willing to do to get it? And if you can answer those questions for yourself, then you should look at remote viewing as a tool that enhances those understandings. But if you don't have an answer to those questions, if you don't know what you want, if you don't know why you want it, and if you don't know what you're willing to do, what kind of sacrifices you're willing to make to get it, then don't waste your time with remote viewing. And it's because it's just a tool. It's just a screwdriver in a toolbox. That's all it is. And there are many different tools, and there are many different paths and many different gifts, all of which you can embrace and unfold and work and practice and do these kinds of things. But, there's a show coming up on Sci-Fi Channel that many of your listeners may be interested in. It's called The Gift. You can see it on the Sci-Fi Channel webpage. And what's going to happen in this show is there are going to be 6 episodes to start off with, and there will be 6 different teachers, and there will be 8 individuals. And those individuals will be just picked from across a spectrum of the human population. And they will take those 8 people, and each week there will be a different instructor that will sit down and train these same 8 people in their gift, whatever it is that they do. And they will train them, and then what they will do is, at the end of that week, of course, they will have to put this gift into practice. And so, of course, the greatest fear that everyone that's participating in that will have will be, the skeptics are right, and we don't have this ability, and there's really nothing to it. But one of the things that's going to have to happen with the 8 students that are learning this is each of these teachers will have to say to these students, what is it that you want from this? And why do you want it? And what are you willing to practice? How often are you willing to go to the psychic gym, shall we say, and work out to make this happen for you? Or do you think that after 7 days of sitting in a lecture and listening to this and doing 5 different practical exercises, that you should suddenly step out 7 days later and know what it is that your life is about? And I just want to be really honest with anybody exploring any of these journeys, any of these paths, any of these disciplines, that that's not the approach, from my opinion. As a teacher, my approach would be, first know what it is you want and know why you want it, and know what you are willing to do to achieve it, and then employ these tools until you find the tool, the path that works best for you. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Thank you, Kristen, for that question.
Yeah, that was a great question.
We will get out a copy of the autographed book to you. We're going to go to a quick commercial. We'll come right back and talk to Dr. Moorehouse a little bit more about remote viewing. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show.
Are UFOs real? Does Bigfoot exist? Was Emily Rose really possessed? Who is the next American Idol?
She bangs! She bangs! Oh, baby, when she moves, she moves. I'm wasted by the way
Thank you. We try to answer these questions and more each week on The Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Tri-Minnesota Mortgage was founded on one simple principle, to be your complete mortgage resource. Keith Troutman and the experts at Tri-Minnesota Mortgage will assist you with all your needs. They've built a reputation for client satisfaction and are devoted to making the mortgage process as easy as possible. You get to work with a broker that understands your needs. Finding the right loan is only the beginning. Tri-Minnesota Mortgage will assist you every step of the way to ensure smooth sailing with personal one-on-one help. I'm Dave Schrader, the host of Darkness on the Edge of Town. When I bought my new home, I turned to Keith Troutman to help me. He made what could have been a very stressful time easy and painless. He was considerate and realizes that this is more than just a job to him. It's the future for you. I recommend them to my friends, and I'm happy to recommend them to you. To take the first step to a financially free tomorrow, call 952-223-5000 or visit them on the web at cruiseatclose.com. For a fresh start, no matter what your current situation, call Keith at Tri-Minnesota Mortgage. That's 952-223-5000. As Keith says, it's your money. Keep more of it. That's Tri-Minnesota Mortgage, 952-223-5000.
Howdy, this is Don Raleigh from Evolve Systems. Evolve Systems can't help you lose weight. We don't know anything about diamonds, and we can't help you save a boatload of money on your car insurance. What we can do is help you with your merchant processing. We work with small businesses to provide credit card processing, debit card processing, gift cards, and check acceptance. Whether you need a point-of-sale system, a credit card terminal, or want to accept payments over the internet, Evolve Systems will work with your small business to find the right solution for your merchant processing needs. Ask us how you can get a free copy of QuickBooks 2006. You can reach us at 651-628-4000 or on the internet at www.evolve-systems.com. Now you have a friend. Well, not yet, but give us a call at 651-628-4000 and we can chat. Evolve Systems, where we help you to manage change. This is Don Raleigh. Cheers.
Would you like to contact a loved one who has crossed over to the other side? Do you worry about your own health issues or those of a loved one? Are you curious about your relationships and your career? If any of these questions have crossed your mind recently, then this is an experience that you cannot miss. Come join me, Jessalyn Devereaux, on Saturday, April 1st, as I host the Meet the Psychics, Meet the Healers Day at the Minneapolis Learning Annex. Just go online today to www.professionalangel.com to register and find out more. Renew yourself with this day that's sure to inspire miracles and change your life. The day is filled with psychic readings, seminars, and spiritual healing sessions. Plus, everyone who attends will receive a free, complimentary mini-reading. So go online today to www.professionalangel.com or call 651-208-6452. That's 651-208-6452.
If you read Taps Para Mag every month, you'll be able to tell the difference between the absurd
Could not go to work because Bigfoot stole my car.
and the creepy. Taps Para Mag takes you where few would ever go on purpose. From exclusive interviews with the cast of The Ghost Hunters to the latest trends in technology, the field of the paranormal. To join our journey, order at tapsparamag.com.
If you bleed from the ears while listening to Leo Sayer records, would it qualify as a paranormal experience? I thought so. Welcome back to the darkness on the edge of town. Ooh, that hurts.
Good evening and welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. This is your host, Dave Schrader, along with co-host and producer Tim Dennis. And our guest this evening is Dr. David Moorehouse, who's talking to us about remote viewing. We've got about 7 minutes left in the show, Dr. Moorehouse. I do have one other email question here, and then I'd like to kind of wrap up with your thoughts on remote viewing and anything that you'd like to share with us on that. The question we have is from Margaret in Connecticut, and she said that years ago she had heard a theory that the military was actually utilizing psychics and remote viewers to fight against enemy attempts to get info through remote viewing and out-of-body experiences. Have you heard about this, and do you think that's possible?
No, but it would be a good movie. I mean, it would, wouldn't it?
I'll co-write it with you, Dave. We could do that together.
Actually, it's interesting because I at one time did a screen treatment for an idea called Ether Wars, which was about that. And but to answer the question, no, I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of it.
Thank you for that question, Margaret. We'll also get out a copy of Dr. Moorehouse's signed book, Psychic Warrior, for you as well. And again, if you have an interest in the book, check it out on Amazon.com, or you can go directly to Dr. David Moorehouse's website at davidmorehouse.com. That's MOREHOUSE.com. We'll also have a web link up on our site at darknessradio.com for you to go check it out. Now, can you tell us, with the last few minutes that we have here remaining, about 5 minutes left, what would you like people to take away? To take your course, to learn about remote viewing? Is this something everybody can do, or do you have to have some kind of innate ability in you?
No, it's something that all of us have, and I really want to be clear on that. I mean, I guess if you take nothing else from the show, take that away. That this is an inherent ability within each of us. It's not something unique to me. It's not something unique to Paul Smith, Lynn Buchanan, Joe McMoneagle, any of the rest that are ever part of this organization that I was in. It's not unique. You don't have to have a heart attack, near-death experience, get shot in the head, run over by a car. You don't have to necessarily grow up with some recognized psychic ability. It's something that, if you in your heart feel it's time for you to take this step, to enter into some process that takes you from believing, here's an interesting concept. You can say that of the 100% of the population on the planet of this earth, 98% of that population believes that there is something beyond the physical. You call it God, it can be a theological perspective, a metaphysical perspective, whatever you want to call it. 98% of the population of this planet believes that there is something beyond our skin, shall we say. 2% do not. That's okay. That 2% represents a significant minority. They don't know that there isn't something beyond the physical. They only believe that there is not something beyond the physical. So they still are in the belief structure. The problem is, if you take that 98% of the population and you break it down, 76 and 24% believe two different things. 76% of the population of this planet believe that there is something beyond the physical, but they believe that the glass of their life is half empty. So they believe that they are living a life of limited promise and possibility, and they believe that because of their conditioning, because of what they have been told, that they cannot be this, that they cannot accept that they cannot grow to this, that they cannot learn these kinds of things, that they cannot expand their promise and their possibility to really great lengths. But 24% believe that the glass of their life is half full, that they have a life of extraordinary promise and possibility, and they are in this process of growing. If you find yourself in that 76%, which is where most of us are, ask yourself, what do you want to get out of that? And why do you want it? And what are you willing to do to move past that position? If you're interested in doing that, then pick a path that will get you from there. I don't care if it's yoga, if it's meditation, or if it's prayer, or if it's whatever it is, even including remote viewing or a dozen other things out there. The whole idea behind any and all of this is utilizing it to make your life better, utilizing it so that you go beyond believing and go to a place of knowing through the experience of doing in the physical and in the non-physical.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show with us this evening, Dr. Moorehouse.
Thank you for having me.
The show, The Gift, are you a part of that show?
The remote viewing will be taught on it, yeah.
Okay, but you're not specifically involved in that show?
No.
Okay. But if you do want to see more with Dr. Moorehouse, you can check out learningannex.com. He'll be in Los Angeles on February 21st. February 23rd, he'll be in San Diego. On March 1st, you can see him in New York. March 2nd, he'll be here in Minneapolis. As a matter of fact, Tim and myself will also be at that program to learn a little bit more about remote viewing. We'd like to have you on again in the future, Dr. Moorehouse, perhaps after we take the course with you, so we could describe a little bit about the events that took place during the course that we were able to learn and glean from it, and talk to you a little bit more. I know there's a lot more questions out there, and we didn't get enough time to get through them all.
Yeah. It'll be good to see you guys.
Great. Well, I'd appreciate getting the chance to meet with you and talk to you. And again, if you have any questions or you'd like more information on remote viewing, please check out Dr. Moorehouse's website at davidmorehouse.com. And that's MOREHOUSE.com. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show. Next week with us, we're going to have spiritual medium and psychic C.J. Sellers. She'll be with us to do some questions. She'll be able to answer your psychic questions if you have them. If she'd like to connect with people that have passed over, she'll be here to help you with that as well. Just a myriad of different possibilities, and she'll be happy to discuss those with you. We'd also like the opportunity to hear back from you on what she hits and what she misses on. She's opening herself up for that. For Kristen in Minneapolis and for Margaret in Connecticut, we're going to get out a signed copy of Dr. Moorehouse's book this evening, The Psychic Warrior. And again, you can pick that up on his website. You can pick that up by clicking on the link at our website at darknessradio.com. We appreciate you listening to the show. Please remember and tell all of your friends that starting March 5th, the show is going to be going to a 2-hour format where we're going to be including more guests, more questions, and covered a lot more different topics for you out there. We appreciate all the time that you guys have spent with us to this point. And please, if you're not a member of our forum and our bulletin board, join up by going to darknessradio.com, click on the discussion tab, and there you'll see a beautiful little pre-set up bulletin board that you can sign up and join up and talk to other people about the paranormal. Talk to them about the show. I know during the live shows, they're actually on there discussing it and sharing their ideas. There's also people there that can help you if you're having problems with hauntings or any other psychic problems. We appreciate you listening to the show. Remember, again, next week is C.J. Sellers, the medium and psychic. You're listening to 1470 AM KLBB, Brooklyn Park.